everybody. It's me, Lisa, aka Wolf and Storm, coming at you live from my special space. Today we are going to do a review for Doctor Who Flux, episode 2, or part 2, I should say, War of the Sontarans. Before we get into it, though, I do need to apologize for the last video. I did my best with the little time that I had, and I didn't realize by how my microphone was placed that the audio track wasn't quite catching up properly with the visual. So I didn't have time to fix it. I did the best I could. I didn't realize that I had to have this thing right up in my face in order for it to be done properly. I'm still getting used to using an actual big microphone, so hopefully this will work better. Okay, so usual stuff still applies. Please help me keep on keeping on by hitting me up on social media, on Twitter at wolfandstorm78, and my Patreon, the Wolf and Storm. Please do. If you become a Patreon member, you can get cool, nifty, neato extras like being able to see these videos before they post to YouTube. You also get to have your name in my list of Patreon subscribers and supporters at the end of the video. So please help me keep on keeping on to bring this awesome content to you. And always, as always, when you're on YouTube right here, do not forget, subscribe, smash the bell to be notified of new videos whenever they appear. Okay, so quick little David Tennant note before we get to the review, because I really don't want this video to be that long. We have a definitive premiere date for Around the World in 80 days, at least in the US anyway. In the US, it will be premiering on PBS January 2nd. I don't know if that's just the first episode or if it's the entire 8 episodes. I guess when the day comes, I'll figure it out. But we will have a review up for that once we see it. So excited for this. This whole series looks totally awesome. They actually finally came out with a trailer. Not that quick little thing that we saw a month or two ago, but an actual, it's not even a trailer. Radio Times published a video clip of the introduction of the episode, the titles, and they look fucking spectacular. If I can find it and get it onto YouTube, I will definitely post a link to it or a card up in the corner so you guys can see it. It looks really awesome. It looks like they did a really great job with it. And I am absolutely excited to see it. The only other premiere date I know for certain right now is the premiere in Germany. And I think that's going to be on the 21st of December, if I'm correct, on Germany's own streaming service. France should be shortly after. The only countries we don't know right now for premiere wise is France and the UK. You would think the UK would find out first before anybody else, but all I know for certain is that Germany in December and the US right after New Year's on January 2nd. I do know for certain that it will be streaming on UK's iPlayer and also on BBC TV. They just haven't decided on a premiere date. It doesn't surprise me because right now the BBC is a bit, let me think of the word, in flux right now with their own set of problems. So it may be taking them a little bit longer than they realize to decide where to place certain shows. But as soon as I find out when the UK premiere date is, you will definitely know. For those of my friends who live in the UK and also in France. I'm assuming that the France premiere date will be probably before the end of the year, like Germany. The only one that's kind of up in the air right now is the UK. So, anyway, on to the review. Doctor Who Flux, Series 13, Episode 2, War of the Sontarans. There's just too many titles for this shit. It's either Series 13 or Flux. Figure it out. So, this one goes right into it And it looks like they finally decided to go back to the cold opens that they haven't had in a long time. At least for Chibnall era, he tends to not bother with cold opens, and he goes straight into title, sequence, and then episode. And I think that's kind of lacking. When we used to have the cold opens, it really got your enthusiasm up and your pulse racing and your heart beating to get you excited for the episode. And without it, you're kind of going into it going, okay, let's see what's happening, but you don't know. Russell was really good for that, the cold opens before the episodes started, and Moffat followed through with that for the most part, with some ups and downs. But Chibnall's not really done it. So it was really good to see an actual cold open. Now, again, I have to remind you, I am going into this, of course, with expectations down in the gutter because, Chibnall. Oh, and also, this is not a spoiler-free blog. So if you have not seen the episode yet, click pause. Come back later after you have. But you should have, because it's already been a week. It's been a good couple of days now since the episode's been out. So we open on, it's black and white, as it used to be in the 60s, for a couple of minutes, and the Doctor wakes up somewhere. We're not sure where. Everything's askew. It's a mess. It looks like some weird hellscape, dreamscape, and you see this weird-looking house thing that's a complete and total mess that makes no sense. And I know there's a lot of rumors out there that people think that it's Longbarrow from the book, the Doctor's ancestral home. I doubt it. I mean, I can't imagine that Chibnall would have that kind of skill to be able to put something in there like that. I don't know what it means or why it's there, but I'm thinking it has something to do with her lost memories, the division, whatever it is, because it seems like they're really trying not to lose that particular storyline. I know Chibnall said he's had to tie it up before she regenerates next year, so those little division plot threads are still going to be in there no matter how much we don't want them to be. So that only lasts for a couple seconds, and then she wakes up again as if she was in a dream. She wakes up on a battlefield. The three of them do, the Doctor, Yaz, and Dan. They're not sure where they're at, and then they come to realize, because they're surrounded by dead bodies, that they're in the Crimea, 1855. They're on battlefield, and the first person they meet is a woman by the name of Miss Mary Seacole, who is a well-known British figure from British history. She was Jamaican. She paid for her own passage to come to the UK. She became a doctress/nurse, and she tended to the wounded on the battlefield during the Crimean War. I don't know that much about her specifically. I've heard some not so great things about her and how she used to hobnob with the upper crust and not really care about poorer people, even though she was a doctress. And I've also heard some positive things. I can't really decide for myself what I think of her because I haven't done enough of the research. Now, she does do a name drop to Florence Nightingale, the actual nurse who was on the Crimean War battlefield, and who is famous for saving soldiers' lives and tending to them. And I feel like almost wouldn't it have been better if it was Florence Nightingale instead of Mary Seacole? I don't know. I will say this, though, that the actress they got, Sarah Powell, to play Mary Seacole, she was actually quite good. I was surprised because a lot of the guest stars that they've had on the show have not been very good. Mostly attributed to the writing as being terrible. And also getting actors that are just not up to the task. This actress actually put her full self in. And for once, the writing was, at least for her anyway, was on point. So I actually quite enjoyed her character, and it gave off that Russell T Davies energy of the way that he used to write his side characters. The unfortunate thing is, it's that the side characters in this episode were the ones that did the most good and had the most impact, whereas the regular characters that were always supposed to be behind, like the Doctor and the companions, were just kind of meh. I do have to give whoever wrote this episode props that he finally managed in 2+ seasons of this damn show, of this era anyway, to actually keep me entertained for once, and actually had me give a damn. Before it was such a mess and so terrible that everything just took me out. So they're on the battlefield. They meet her. She thinks that they're digging into the pockets of the dead soldiers to steal stuff. They assure her they are not. She takes them back to the establishment she's built called the British Hotel, which is basically like a de facto hospital and meeting place for the wounded and also for soldiers who are gathering to try and figure out what their next move is. It's a famous place in British history. And I have to say that the cinematicness, again, was well done. But again, it's at the sacrifice. I mean, they put the money towards the big things to the detriment of the smaller things. So she mentions, oh, wow, we're in the middle of the Crimean War. The British are fighting Russians. And Mary Seacole gives us this look like, huh? What is this word Russia that you were talking about? I do not know these people, these Russians. And she's like, well, if you're not fighting the Russians, who the fuck are you fighting? And so they hear soldiers coming. So they hide so they won't see them. And when they look out, it's not Russian soldiers that are on horseback. It's the Sontarans. So apparently, long story short, when the Carvanista ships, when just seconds before they came together in that sphere to protect the Earth, like a fraction of a second before it was complete, the Sontarans managed to take advantage and slip through. Somehow undetected. How? Don't know, because plot says, I guess. Because you would think that 7 billion ships that are surrounding Earth would have noticed a fleet of fucking Sontarans trying to slip through. Don't know. Okay. As Critical Drinker likes to say. 'Cause plot. So they slipped in and they managed to take advantage of what the Flux was doing to scatter themselves throughout Earth's history. So not only are they invading in the Crimea, but they're invading in multiple points, pretty much all points around Earth's history. It's really fucking crazy. So before they can even figure out how the hell they got to the Crimea, Yaz and Dan literally fade away into the ether in front of the Doctor's eyes. She doesn't know where they've gone. She doesn't know why they faded away. But we come to find out Dan appears back home in Liverpool, right on the street outside of his house, or where his house used to be because it's still shrunk in his pocket. And he realizes that something is definitely wrong because the streets are way too quiet. There's nobody out. It's eerie. Something's wrong. And when he tries to knock on a neighbor's door, they don't want to answer. They look scared. They close their curtains, And all of a sudden, he sees Sontarans. He looks up because he lives right near the football pitch and the big football stadium. And on top of the stadium is a huge Sontaran ship. He also lives near the shipyards. Huge Sontaran ship. And he realizes that the Sontarans are there. Oh my God. So he runs to hide and he accidentally comes across his parents. Okay. I know this is Chibnall trying to say, hey, I can do families too, just like Russell. I can be Russell. No. For what little we got of them, they were cute and kind of funny. But there wasn't a lot of development with them because there just wasn't time. The thing with Russell is that he allowed the family members like Jackie and Francine and Mickey and all of them to be there over time, to develop and round them out and make them characters that you can root for and care about and love. Here they just kind of pop out of nowhere, and you don't really know them very well, and they're kind of funny, but you can also tell that that's what they're being used for. They're being used for the humor. But there's not a lot of depth to them. They're funny, but that's about it. Dan's surprised to see them, and they get into the car, and they explain that the Sontarans have been there for like 3 days, that they just appeared out of nowhere, that a curfew has been set. That's why everyone's off the streets. Everybody's scared. And they take Dan to the shipyards where he sees a whole, space shipyard. Apparently, the Sontarans, that's where they landed their ships, and they're building more. It's crazy. So now he's got to figure out what exactly their plan is and how to get rid of them. But he's alone in this with nothing but a walk. He doesn't understand what the walk is for, and his father explains to him, because he's when he initially comes upon his parents, he has Sontarans in front of him, and his dad smashes the Sontaran in the back of the head with the walk on the little gas port there. Their weakness, if you hit them on that port, they'll collapse. So that's why Dan's carrying the frying pan, just in case. Yaz turns up in a completely different part of the galaxy, somewhere else in the distant part of the universe, on a planet called Time, in the Temple of Atropos. She has no idea what she's doing there or how she got there. First person she comes across is that tunnel digger, wealthy, shady guy from the first episode from 1820. And there's no sense to why he's there whatsoever. He's there for like 2 seconds and then he disappears. I don't understand what the point of having him there was for. You don't know how he could have gotten there. He's just kind of there, and he's mumbling about digging tunnels and needing to find something, and then he walks away. No sense. Then this diamond-shaped robot that apparently is like the caretaker of the temple comes up to her and asks her if she can repair. Repair what? We don't know. Before she got there, though, Vinder got there first. He somehow wound up there, unconscious. And when he wakes up, the diamond shows up and asks him if he can repair. It takes him to the central part of the temple, which looks to be empty, although it seems it didn't used to be, because it looks like if you look around the outside, it looks like there's quite a bit of damage. So something obviously happened there. And when he steps up onto to where the main altar is, you see flashes of women that are standing all around in a circle. Some women are there and some are not. Some it's just the body and there's no head. And the diamond keeps asking him if he can repair. And we're assuming he means repair the altar or whatever. So Yaz shows up. They meet. And for the first time in like ever, Yaz actually does something. Actually emotes towards Binder for some reason. They seem to have a little bit of chemistry. Wow. Oh my God. So for those fans who are really hoping for a Dr. Yaz thing, I don't know. It seemed like Yaz and Vinder seemed to have some chemistry going on, even though it was only for a couple of seconds. But it was literally the first time I actually saw her emote and, be a person instead of a wooden plank. So I guess we will see in the next 4 episodes how that evolves. So he explains to her how the altar works. You have to go step on it because it's activated by proximity. And she sees the women there. And the diamond keeps asking them, can they repair? And they're trying to figure out what exactly they mean by repair. So back on the Crimea, Mary Seacole takes the doctor into the British hotel, and She explains that the Sontarans have been here forever, and the Doctor's like, "What the fuck are you talking about, dude?" No, I mean, so the first person we meet at the British Hotel is a commander. Okay, I'm gonna right off the bat here. I know some of the reviews have been quite scathing as to how the Doctor treated the commander and how the commander treated the Doctor. First of all, this is 1855. So if he dismisses her because she's a woman, that's kind of natural considering the time frame. And don't forget, he wasn't dismissive of Mary Seacole, who's not only a woman, but a woman of color. He wasn't dismissive of her at all. But that was probably because he was a desperate man who knew that if he was dismissive of her or treated her badly, that she would kick him out. Him and his regiment out of the hotel. And he couldn't have that. That was the only place they had to... That was the only place of safety that they had. So I think his acceptance of her was more strategic than anything else. But the Doctor tries to explain that there's no way that the Sontarans should be here. Of course, in their mind, the Sontarans have always been here. So she asks them for a map. She sees that Jamaica's still there, the UK is still there, but when she looks at Russia and China, it doesn't exist anymore. I mean, the country is still there, but it's not called Russia and China anymore. It's called Sontar. And that's when she realizes that whatever this war is, it's temporally inclined, that they have gone throughout the entirety of history and situated themselves to fight this war in different periods of time. I don't understand why that was necessary. I mean, if they wanted to take over the planet, they didn't need to go all the way from the dawn of time until present. They could have picked one and just done it. I mean, it would have worked either way. I don't understand what the scope was for. Now, the two of them say that they kind of remember the word Russia as if it's in the back of their memory, but they don't understand the significance, which means that whatever happened with the Sontarans happened recently. If it had been something that had happened a long time ago, then whatever memory of what the countries used to be would have been gone completely. There would have been no memory period. It would have become solid. At this point, Earth's history was still in flux and could be fixed if the Doctor could find a way. If they had been there any longer, it wouldn't have been in flux. It would have been a fixed point, and then they would have been fucked. So she tries to explain to the general that they're fighting a losing battle. The Sontarans are born and bred to fight. The humans cannot possibly stand up to them in any way, shape, or form, or they're going to be slaughtered. Of course, the general is not going to listen to her. And okay, I know a lot of people were commenting about how the Doctor seemed to be complaining to the general and treating him like shit and nagging him and blah, blah, blah. I know for a fact that before Jodie Whittaker, the male doctors did the same thing, but their approach was different. It didn't come off as catty and naggy, and this is not coming out because it makes it seem like it only comes off the way because she's a woman, and I felt like in this episode, for the first time, she actually, for the first time in almost 3 years that she's been doing this, which is kind of sad, actually, because when you play a character like this, you have to establish yourself as the Doctor from the jump. And she just never did. And 2.5 years in, I finally felt like there was an iota, a smidge of Doctorness about her, at least when she was addressing the humans. But this is not because of Jodie's performance. It's because she had good actors to play off of and a halfway decent script. If the actors that she was playing off of, meaning the commander and Mary Seacole, if they had not been good actors, it would have just flopped completely. This is not to say that it was all that great to begin with, but because she had the two of them to back her up, it allowed her to be just a little bit more Doctor-ish. When she was confronting the commander and telling him that there was no way in hell that he could possibly win and that those men were going to be slaughtered, I finally felt like for the first time she was figuring out how to be a darker oncoming, like I could feel the oncoming storm was right at the precipice. She was just almost there, but not quite. She was oncoming storm E for about 5 seconds. And then when he got in her face and dismissed her, because he didn't think she knew what she was talking about, and probably because she was a woman, then it kind of went from there. Because that was all she was focused on. It's like Chibnall Eric can't rationalize the fact that things in the past are different than they are now. That reactions to women on the battlefield or women in positions of power were different to where they are now. So him acting like that is natural for him in that time period. So for her to make her situation worse by berating him for it, it doesn't help anybody. You think, being the Doctor, she should know this. I mean, the Doctor used to always say they were the cleverest person in the room. She doesn't act very clever. So that seems to fail, and the commander is determined to confront the Sontarans. So Mary C. Cole tells the Doctor that she's been keeping a secret that nobody knows about, and that if the Doctor is who she says she is and understands the Sontarans the way she does, that maybe if she divulges the secret to her, they can figure something out. She takes her into a back room. And in the back room, there's a Sontaran. Hello, Dan Starkey. Everybody knows Dan Starkey, who is, of course, Strax. This time he's playing a different one. Apparently he was captured on the battlefield, which is a big no-no for Sontarans. That's a death sentence. Mary C. Cole is of the mind that it doesn't matter if you're Sontaran or human. If you're injured, she's going to help you. And that really gives her a lot of depth. I like that about her. It was nice that they explored that both sides. It gave her much more roundness. So the Doctor confronts this Sontaran and says that she has information for him, that she can tell him where their enemy, the Doctor, is, that the Doctor is here in the Crimea, and that if she's allowed to parley with their leader, she will tell them where the Doctor actually is. That scene actually wasn't too bad. That exchange that she had with him was Doctor-y. I will say that whoever wrote this episode managed to slightly improve Jodie Whittaker's delivery in some spots. So he agrees. They let him go. The commander's pissed off and is about to shoot, but Doctor's like, no, you will not. This is a strategy and we're going to fucking follow it. So you can tell that the commander is really pissed off. And either way, they're going to war. So the Doctor takes Mary C. Cole with her. And she tells her that the reason why I told you to let him go, like I'm really going to tell him that I'm here, please. The reason why I told you that I let him go is, the reason why I let him go is because you guys need to find where the Sontaran base is to have any chance of winning this or even making it out of this alive. So far, you haven't been able to find where their base is. Now I'm going to show you. By following him, because where do you think he's going to go? Back to their base. So they follow him, and he walks through this shimmer. So basically, they have a force field up on the side of, like a hillside. It makes it look like it's a hill, but it's really not. It's actually a force field that projects an image of a hill. So they follow him in, and there's Sontaran ships everywhere. I mean, top to bottom, massive amounts of soldiers. I mean, the place is just crawling with them. And you could tell by the scope that there is no chance that the humans will survive this. None. Even if there were a lesser amount of Sontarans, it still wouldn't work because the Sontarans have superior weapons and technology, not only handheld but on their ships. So, I mean, and the humans have bayonets and and rudimentary cannons. That's about it. So she tells Mary C. Cole to hide and sit there and record everything, all movements that she sees. Mary C. Cole's already told her that from what she's been able to observe about the Sontaran that she had under her care, that he sleeps 7.5 minutes every 27 hours. Apparently that is their designated rest period because Sontarans, they can't deal with Earth's atmosphere. That's why they wear those suits and the helmets. And every 27 hours, they have to recharge the chemical that goes into their helmets to keep them alive. So she says, watch, record everything. I want to know everything they do. Okay. I don't know why you had to drag her here for that. I mean, you already know more about the Sontarans than anybody else does. Why do you, don't know, 'cause plot. So she goes onto the Sontaran ship. At least, well, she goes onto one of them. At the same time, Dan is sneaking around the spaceship yard, trying to outwit the Sontarans. And this is when it gets really dramatic. I wasn't entirely sure about Dan's character at first. I felt like I didn't want him to be another Bradley Walsh, old white guy played for laughs. And especially considering that John Bishop, who plays Dan, is a comedian. So I was kind of worried about how they were going to use that. But in actuality, yes, Dan does joke a lot. It's part of his character, but it doesn't make him look stupid. I know a lot of other fans or a lot of other people have reviewed saying that it seemed to them like Dan was just bumbling around like a moron. I didn't feel that. I felt it felt maybe at first when he was with his parents, because that was kind of cringy. The whole scene in the car. That was Chibnall trying to look. I can Russell. I can family, and yeah, it just wasn't happening. But once the parents left, it was just Dan. I felt like the drama kind of went up a little bit. And when he was hiding from them and he witnessed the murder, the execution of a group of humans just out of nowhere, the look on his face, he couldn't even look at it as it was happening. He was terrified. At that moment, I think that's when his whole outlook shifted. He realized this wasn't just like some weird shit that was going on and it'll be over. No, this is serious, like serious shit. So he's the first companion that I've seen, at least in this era, that actually has shown some initiative, that actually throws himself into the fire, that isn't wooden, actually seems to have a personality. I mean, I know it's early days. It's only at episode 2. There's still time to develop him more. That's one of the things about this only being 6 episodes that I was initially worried about, is that there wouldn't be enough time to properly develop the characters and the story. The pacing is very wild in these episodes, from one place to the next, because there's not a lot of time to get everything in there that he wants in there, because he's only got 6 episodes to do it in. So Dan sneaks onto one of the ships, and he has no idea how to work any of the controls. He just starts pressing buttons. At the same time, the Doctor is on one of the Sontaran ships in the Crimea, and she's doing the same thing, but she actually knows what she's doing. And Dan manages to open a video conference thing with the Doctor in the past somehow. Now, the fact that the Sontarans somehow have time travel technology, I don't know how that's possible, because the last time I checked, the Sontarans did not have time travel tech. The only other race besides the Time Lords that had even a smidgen of understanding about time travel tech was the Daleks. And that was only after constant war with the Time Lords and stealing their technology to learn to understand it and use it for themselves. The Time Lords were very careful about who got their hands on time travel technology. So how the Sontarans managed to get it, I don't know. Plot, I guess. So they have a quick conversation. The Doctor's happy that he's alive. Still don't know where Yaz is, but she's telling him to find out as much as he can about what's going on. And Dan misunderstands what the Doctor is saying and thinks that the Sontarans have an obsession about Japanese food because he heard the word tempura. That's not what was said. It was temporal war. Again, another attempt at comedy levity that sort of falls flat. It's one thing about Chibnall that I can't deny in this era. His attempts at levity and his attempts at humor just don't land. Ever. It's just not funny. None of it's funny. It's just cringe. So they're having a conversation, and the Sontarans that are on board the ship cotton on to what's going on, and they cut off the signal, and that's the end of that. And for a second there, Dan thinks he's going to die when the Sontarans start flooding the room, but then Carbonista shows up and takes them all out. Apparently they still have a connection, so Carbonista is, he has no choice but to protect Dan because that's his job. So he's trying to get Dan out of the ship, and the plan is to go to an escape pod. What Carbonista has decided to do is set the ship to ram into the shipyard so it will destroy all the other ships. And he figures that the temporal explosion will nullify the presence of the Sontarans, not just in Dan's timeline, but all throughout the history of Earth. He's got it set, and it's fine, but they can't get to the escape pod because the Sontarans are surrounding them, and he's shooting and trying to get away. So they're on the run, and they go down what looks like a garbage chute, and they slip out the side of the ship and fall into the river, and the ship nosedives into the shipyard and goes boom and blows up the entire Sontaran fleet. While that's happening at the same time, the commander has sent his army out to take on the Sontarans, and that's where we get the scene from the trailer, that big war scene where the two sides are coming together. It's massive, it's huge, epic scale. That was actually quite well done, and you could feel the power imbalance. You just knew that the Sontarans were going to destroy them. It was sad to see them going up against this army that they had no hope to stop. None. The commander realizes the mistake he's made, but it's too late. His men are already dead. I mean, the Sontarans wiped out the entire army. The commander somehow manages to survive. Now, before this happens, this is the one scene that really irked me. Before the confrontation, the Doctor goes to have the parley with the leader of the Sontarans. And I was really hoping that the smidge of doctorness she had with the humans back at the British hotel would stay with her during this parley. No. No. She tried. Half star. She tried. Yeah, that was a joke. Every time she opened her mouth to talk to the Sontaran leader, all he did was laugh in her face, and I felt like that Sontaran was some kind of audience surrogate of sorts to how we were feeling towards her as she was trying to talk to this Sontaran down. It was just laughable. I mean, whatever oncoming storminess that was right there, just like, yeah. She's really good flying, but she can never seem to stick the landing. Just, yeah. And that, I have to chalk that one up to Jodie, because the writing wasn't that bad. It was okay. And if this was given to anybody else, David Tennant, Peter Capaldi, Matt Smith, it would have worked. They would have made it work, because they were that good. They could take a shit script and turn it around and make it 10 times better. Jodie just doesn't have that ability. She cannot tap into those darker layers of the Doctor for anything. And every time she tries to confront an enemy or tries to get dark or do the oncoming storm thing, it just completely falls flat, and it's laughable. I mean, it's a joke. And it hurts me, because I know that I remember when this show was amazing. I mean, check out on YouTube the clip from the Zygon inversion. The 12th Doctor speech is probably the best speech I think that the Doctor has ever made. And that, it's not just the script, because that was a very long and rambling speech that, given anybody else of lesser skill, would have come off as just rambling. But because it was given to Peter Capaldi, who is a fantastic actor and knows how to play the darkness of the Doctor properly, it was probably the best speech that the Doctor ever made. It will give you chills every time you see it. Just like Matt Smith in Rings of Akaten, and I know it wasn't a very long speech, but David Tennant in the Lazarus Experiment, because they have the skill to pull it off, even if the scripts are shit. Jodie just doesn't have it. She tries, but it's like she's stealing from them. It just doesn't work. She can't do it on her own. So when the Sontaran laughs, it's like he's laughing for the audience too. The commander shows up and has her summarily removed from the battlefield. And that's when the fight starts. So after the fight ends and the commander sees that all his men are dead, he realizes the mistake that he's made, and he has no choice but to beg the Doctor for help. Now, the scene that comes after this, when he shows up at the British hotel asking her for help, oh God, more cringe. It looks like they're in some sort of mini classroom sort of thing, and she's got I need a pointy stick, okay? I need a pointy stick. Sontarans. And she's kind of acting like some crazy teacher who's trying to educate them about the Sontarans' weaknesses and discuss how, the plan, how they're going to infiltrate and take them down, and blah, blah, blah. And she's manic, and there's all sorts of, she's trying to be humorous with it. Very, very David Tennant, Matt Smith vibe that she was trying to pull off. No, I'm sorry. The levity and humor that she tries just does not work. Chibnall cannot do it. It just makes her look like an idiot. So she explains about the gas exchange, or the little hole in the back of their neck that is their weak spot, and that they have to, it allows them to recharge with certain gases that keep them alive. And they have to do it for 7 minutes every 27 hours, because if they don't, then they can't stay on this planet because they won't be able to breathe, and the atmosphere will kill them. So what they decide to do is they decide to sneak into the Sontaran camp and completely disrupt while they're sleeping, while they're charging, because they won't be noticed while this is happening. Because apparently the entire Sontaran fleet does this at the same time. There's nobody standing watch outside to make sure that, people don't find their way in. And they're going to disrupt the charging system. They're going to destroy it, corrupt it, break it. So that the Sontarans will have no choice but to retreat. So they all get there. they start disrupting the ships, and everything seems to be okay. But then the commander decides to do his own thing. He brings like 15 barrels of gunpowder and has his men pour out gunpowder around the entire camp. He has decided that he is going to destroy the entire fleet to avenge the loss of his men. And I don't know if he's truly doing that because he is angry at what happened to his men, or he's doing it out of a sense of guilt for not listening to the doctor when he should have. And of course she starts railing at him, and she yells at him, "Why would you do this?" They're because them messing up the gas system worked. They were leaving, but they also said that they were going to come back once they were able to recharge and fix their ships, that they were going to come back. This isn't like what happened with the Sycorax in Christmas Invasion with the 10th Doctor when he defeated them on the field of battle. He had already parlayed with the leader and said, if I defeat you, you leave, you don't ever come back, period. And they couldn't say no to that because he won. They had agreed and he won. So he knew that once they left, they weren't coming back. So when Harriet Jones went and had Torchwood destroy the ship anyway, he had a right to be angry. But here, that commander knew that even though they were leaving for that short period of time, it was only going to be a short period of time, and that once they recharged, they would come back. So he was kind of heading it off at the pass, getting rid of them before, and she went off. I don't know why I bothered to deal with you humans, blah, blah, blah. It's men like you that make me wonder why I bother to deal with humans in the first place. Seriously? Like, really? And Mary's like, well, I'm grateful for everything that you've done, Doctor. Yeah, because the woman gets to be grateful and the guy gets to be the asshole. Even though he had the right idea, because they weren't going to stay away. Yes, her plan might have helped for a short period of time, but they were going to come back. That's what Sontarans do. They don't ever quit. There's a reason why the Sontarans and the Ruttons have been in a war for millennia. They don't ever stop. It's what they're literally born and bred to fucking do. So there was no doubt that the Sontarans would come back. So basically, this commander was doing what he thought he had to do to save the planet and avenge his men. I can't fault him for that. So, right as that happens, that the very same time in Dan's timeline is when that ship crashes into the spaceship yard, and the temporal explosion takes it all out. So that means that the Sontarans were never there, period. And everything returns back to the way that it was supposed to be. Well, all this is going on. Yaz and Vinder are trying to figure out what exactly needs to be repaired at the temple. And while they're trying to figure it out, our three villainous friends show up. The Swarm, his sister Azure, and their new friend called Passenger, who looks suspiciously a lot like Thanos in that mask. Yeah. I want to like these villains. I think that the acting and the writing for them is top notch. They're some really good villains so far. The problem is I can't take them seriously. Not because of the acting. The guy who's playing Swarm is really good. Like, these are some interesting villains. They are captivating, and I am interested to see how this keeps going. The problem is it's hard for me to take them seriously because of the costuming and the makeup effects. It's just terrible. Like, just terrible. Every time I see them in a scene, no matter how good the dialogue is, I totally get taken out of the action because the outfits they wear are just ridiculous, and the makeup looks like some cheap shit you bought at Walgreens. Like the blue on Azure's face, it looks like blue eyeshadow or whatever, some cheap shit you bought at the store. I know for a fact this show could do better than that. But unfortunately, it looks like all the money has gone towards the big epic CGI scenes, and everything else that could have used the money went by the wayside. That just kind of takes me out of the action a little bit. However, they showed up, they destroyed the diamond after the diamond asked them to repair, and then they go into the temple, and they see Vinder and Az there. So Az doesn't know what to do on her own, but she's got this thing written on her palm. WWTDD. What would the Doctor do? Is that really necessary? You know, it used to be that companions were written to be badass on their own terms. That they didn't need to think about what the Doctor would do or follow the Doctor's way in order to be badass. Where did that go? Like, seriously, where did that go? Now everything has to be just what the Doctor does just for it to be right. Like Yaz can't be a cool person on her own terms. Not that Yaz is a person, she's still a plank. She's never had any development of her own. She's only as good as the Doctor makes her out to be. So, yeah, that took me out of it totally. And the Swarm was easily able to take advantage of her insecurity about not knowing how to confront things on her own terms and be badass on her own terms. No, I got to think about what the Doctor would do, because I, as a human, I don't have the capability. I don't have the skill. It has to be only what the Doctor would do. Just to be cool and just to be right, because, you know, as a human, I suck, right? Wait, no, I don't suck. I'm not developed enough to suck. So, the Swarm gets in this conversation with her. Vinder tries to shoot them with his gun, but they have some sort of power that makes them go all over the place, so he can't really get to them at all. And the Swarm is using her insecurity against her. He grabs her face and she's trying to get away and she can't. And we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but the tension is high. At first, I honestly thought they were going to kill her. I was like, oh, wow, they're going to go there with this. Are they really going to kill Yaz? Well, that's okay. We still have Dan, and Dan's not bad, you know? As this is happening, the Doctor leaves the Crimea, because I forgot to mention at the beginning of the episode, she tried to get back into the TARDIS, but the door was gone, because the TARDIS is all a mess, like huge mess. After she defeats the Sontarans in the Crimea, the door finally manages to appear. She goes inside, and the crystals in that dead spider-looking thing are falling apart. Some of them are broken, falling down. They're leaking this black goo. She doesn't understand why the ship is falling apart. It seems like the TARDIS is dying. I'm assuming it has something to do with the flux. I don't know. I don't know how she managed. Well, okay, I know she knows where Dan is because she had the video conversation with him. But I don't know how she knew exactly where Dan was, like his exact location where he was standing at that moment in time. But she manages to materialize in the ship right where Dan is. They're on the dock. Him and Carve and East have just come out of the water and they're all soaking wet. And she's happy to see him, and she sees that they managed to, stop it, and the Sontarans, everything's fine. And she says, well, now I got to go and find Yaz. I got to figure all this mess out. Do you want to come with me? And Dan's like, okay, cool, sure. Carve and Issa, they have asked him to stay on Earth and make sure that the Earth is protected until this is all sorted. So Dan goes with her. I don't know how they managed to figure out where Yaz was, considering the ship is having such huge, massive problems and is apparently dying. I don't know how she managed to locate Yaz, but don't know, because plot. She manages to locate Yaz. They turn up at the temple. And they go inside the main altar room. And Azure and Swarm and Passenger are there. And there's a confrontation. And when Swarm steps up onto the altar, you can see it flicker. And he says, well, they asked me to repair, and so I did. Albeit this is a temporary measure. Apparently, this planet called Time, these women are some sort of entity that controls the flow of time. And because they're damaged, time is getting out of control and it's become evil. I'm confused. I don't understand how that works. I'm assuming hopefully they will explain more. So in order to effect a temporary repair, the Swarm took Yaz and Vinder and put them up in the spots that, for the women that were broken or missing, put them in that place. Because when it flickers and you see them, they're standing there like this, and they've got the tattoos on their face and thing on their head, and the doctor's like, what? So the Swarm says to her, once I snap my fingers, time will start to flow once again, since I've effected this temporary repair. But because they're human, I don't know how well that's going to work. Their bodies could be dissolved in the winds of time. So I guess we will see. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And right as he snaps, episode end. Somebody was stealing from Endgame. When I said that the Passenger looked like Thanos, someone was stealing from the Avengers. You don't just have a snap out of nowhere like that for nothing. Seriously, it's like Chibnall can't have his own ideas. He got to steal from everyone else's. Okay, so the episode as a whole was better than what I've seen so far. The only thing is that it was better for the wrong reasons. It was better because of the side characters, like the villains and Mary Seacole, and in some ways Dan, but not because of the Doctor's performance. And that's bad. The show is supposed to center around her, around the Doctor as the central character. And if she continues to be bad and has to be buoyed by everybody else around her because she's terrible, that doesn't bode well. The development is still a bit lacking, which worries me because he's only got 4 more episodes left to finish the story. And if the development doesn't start moving along, then by the time episode 6 comes, it's going to be a mess. But I suppose we will see. Episode 3 is called Once Upon Time. And they did a big boo-boo when they did this trailer, because the whole cliffhanger was the idea that Az and Vinder might die once he snaps his fingers. And yet the very first scene you see in the trailer for episode 3, Yaz is alive, Vinder is alive, and they're perfectly fine. So that kind of, it takes you out of the cliffhanger. Oh, like there's really no cliffhanger left. The interesting thing is that in this episode, apparently, in one of the scenes, you see Dan and Yaz wearing Division armor, carrying Division weaponry. So, interesting. I guess we will see where that goes. But this is the halfway point coming up on episode 3. If they don't start really establishing things by this episode, then this whole series is going to fail. We're already halfway in. There's no more time to wait around. Your setup is done. You need to get into the nitty gritty now. If you don't, it's going to be a mess. So if I had to rate out of 10, I would say 5.5, 6, somewhere there. This is one of those episodes that was just okay. It was the first one in the whole era that's actually kept me entertained. And that was mostly the Dan scenes in Dan's timeline. He seems to be getting better with each episode. I have high hopes for Dan. I quite like him. But I mean, we're talking about, I mean, what do I have to compare it to? To compare Dan to? Ryan, Yaz, and Graham. It's not a lot to compare. So, really, the bar is kind of low when it comes to companions. I don't know who's writing for Dan, but it seems like he's trying. But they need to be careful. They need to balance his humor with his development. If they rely too much on the humor as his whole character, then it's going to fail. It's going to be like what happened with Bradley Walsh, him becoming the butt of the joke. Please don't do that again. It really wasn't fair, because Bradley Walsh's character was the only decent companion that they had. Please don't do this a second time. You have a good opportunity with Dan. Don't fail him. And I'm also kind of liking this relationship with the Carvanista dog alien guy. I have this feeling that they could become pretty good friends if they ever had the opportunity. I know that he acts like, oh, I don't like you because you're a human, blah, blah, blah. But the chemistry they have when they're together, it's like, I could feel the bromance coming. It's weird because he's a dog man, but still, they just have that sort of connection, and it just works. All right, so yeah, I'll give it about 5.5, maybe 6 out of 10. Not too bad. A little bit better than episode 1, definitely, because it wasn't as chaotic. But we're definitely going to need some plot development toot sweet, because we're almost halfway through. We don't have a lot of time left. So, needs to pick up the pace. Again, low expectations. We'll see what happens. Can't say much more than that. All right, guys. So that is it for my review. This Sunday, the review might be a little bit later than expected because last Sunday I was off. This coming Sunday I have to work. So by the time I get home at 4 o'clock, the episode will have already aired, if not been in the middle of airing. So I'm going to have to wait till it's finished. I have a thing on my computer that allows me to watch it straight from the BBC when it airs in the UK. But because I'm going to be at work, I'm probably going to miss it. So I will have to wait till till a link to it turns up somewhere else. Or I think it might be on BBC America later on in the evening. Either way, I have the next 2 days off after that. So there will definitely be a review for that episode within those 2 days. Promise. All right, guys. Well, I will see you when I see you. Peace out.
Good night.